It's 6:31. We have a quorum, so we're good there. Everyone rise.
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father God, we're thankful for this day. We're thankful, Lord, for your goodness to us through your Son, Jesus Christ. Father, I pray that you be with us tonight as we try and make important decisions for this district. I pray that you grant us wisdom and help us to work through the issues that we need to work through. Thank you, Father, for this time. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. Student spotlight. Dr. Sanderson.
Come on up, Tiffany. Join me at the podium. You can stand right here. That'll be fine. It is my pleasure tonight to honor Tiffany Stevens for earning her state Lone Star FFA degree. And before we start, I want to recognize Ms. Latham and Ms. Phillips for being here tonight to support her. They played a great role in this as well. And the FFA, this Lone Star FFA degree is the highest degree of membership the State FFA Association can award. Members can apply to receive this state level degree only after they have received the local Green Hand degree and the district level chapter degree. Those wishing to receive this degree must be an active FFA member for at least 2 years and complete 4 semesters of an agricultural science at or above the 9th grade level, maintain a supervised agricultural experience program, invest significant time and money in their SAE, and demonstrate leadership skills, show a commitment to the FFA through involvement at the chapter level and above. A few of the highlights required to earn the state FFA Lone Star degree is 2 years receiving the state, be a member for at least 2 years at the time of receiving the degree, having earned and productively invested at least $1,000 and worked at least 300 hours in excess of the scheduled class time, demonstrated leadership ability by performing 10 parliamentary law procedures, giving a 6-minute speech on a topic related to agricultural FFA, and serving as an FFA officer, committee chairperson, or committee member. And finally, one of the other requirements is to complete at least 25 hours of community service in a minimum of 2 different activities. It is my pleasure to now recognize Ms. Tiffany Stevens for earning the state FFA Lone Star degree. Let's get the certificate.
And as you're getting the certificate, Dr. Sanderson, this is probably one of the most difficult degrees to achieve, especially in the ag sciences. So it is a lot of time-consuming effort. You have to build a portfolio, and just the dedication to it is pretty amazing.
Awesome.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay. Tiffany moved to us from a different school, and so it was really difficult for her to get it because she didn't have all of her records here. So we had to talk to people and get records transferred, and she had to do extra work. She had to do a lot of work, so we're really proud of her.
Yay!
I guess. You don't have a choice. And you get to be in the front. Everyone else stands behind you.
Well, since I'm short, I guess.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can you get us off?
Yes.
Squeeze.
So I can.
All right.
Is your lighting okay in the back, or is it glare on it?
It's okay.
Okay. All right.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're very good.
Congratulations. Thanks,
Well done.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Teacher spotlight.
Bridget, would you join me up here? So, it is our pleasure at the intermediate school to recommend Emily Pritchett as our spotlight teacher. When we think about who we're hiring and when we're looking for interviews and the right type of teacher to come and represent us and to work with our kiddos every day, Emily is one of those teachers who we model that after. She does a great job day in and day out. Always has a smile on her face. I never see her smile. She's not smiling. She is really concentrating because always has a smile on her face. Loves her kids, loves her students. Comes in with a hard-working attitude. Is willing to take on any challenge at the campus. Very instrumental in starting a new program or starting a new activity for kiddos with our drama club last year, and we're looking forward to her and her team continuing that on this year. Just a wonderful attitude, wonderful work ethic, wonderful spirit, and what we want as far as teachers at the intermediate school. So it is my pleasure to recommend Emily Pritchett for the Spotlight Teacher Award.
All right, one more time. You get it. Gee, I know. Come on in, Nick. Yeah, come on in.
Oh, sorry. There you go. So pretty. Squeeze. I'm sorry.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. You're awesome.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next is our public comments, and we do have someone who wishes to speak. Is it Keitzer?
Keitzer, but I've been
Keitzer,
called
I'm sorry.
worse. I can.
I
represent
hold on
several.
Hold on just a second. I've got to read this statement before you speak, so as soon as I'm done, we'll give you the floor.
Nope.
Each participant will be limited to 5 minutes to make comments to the board. Any group of 5 or more persons must appoint one person to present the group's views to the board. The board is not permitted to discuss and act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. This comment period is not intended for the presentation of complaints. The board has adopted complaint policies that are designed to secure at the lowest possible administrative level a prompt and equitable resolution to complaints and concerns. Each of these processes provides that if a resolution cannot be achieved administratively, the person may appeal the administrative decision to the board as a properly posted agenda item. Okay? You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I represent more than 5. You can see I have a lot of support. Again, my name is Eric Keitzer. I'm here representing students who participate in extracurricular activities. I'm here to represent parents, grandparents, and also taxpayers. I want you to understand that this is in reference strictly to the enhancements that were made to the drug and alcohol policy here at GISD that were voted on by the board and implemented this year. So these enhancements are new, and I want to bring some of those to your attention. Again, it focuses strictly on the enhancements made to the drug and alcohol policy in reference to using social media with a photo as evidence to impose penalty to your students that participate in extracurricular activities. I unfortunately am familiar with the process firsthand, and I want to go over to you quickly how the process works. The parents are called, a meeting is required, we then come to a meeting. That meeting involved myself, my son's mother, Mr. Harper, and the athletic director. At that point in time, you're handed a policy, the drug and alcohol policy, and I've provided you with the copy that I was supplied in our meeting. If you'll also notice, everything that is highlighted in light blue is exactly how the policy was presented to us by the school board. It also includes some X's with light blue highlights, which refers to being tested, and those are X'd out of the policy when it comes into relation to the enhancements that were made for this school year. In that meeting, what is done is after we're handed the policy, we are then handed 2 photos of our son by Mr. Harper. At that point in time, the only thing that we had to confirm is that, to the best of our knowledge, this was our son in the photos.
Mr. Keitzer, can I interrupt you for a second? If you could refrain from using any employees' names directly.
Didn't know that. I didn't know what his
Thank you.
title is.
Go
What's
ahead.
his title?
Just the employee.
Okay.
Just say employee.
Admin. I'll just say admin.
It's fine.
At that point in time, it was confirmed that that was our son to the best of our knowledge in the pictures, and also included in the pictures, he had beer cans in his hands. If you'll notice, I've provided some custom photos of Mr. Irwin and Mr. Fincher. Now, those are Photoshop pictures, but I wanted to illustrate how inaccurate a photo can be in what it represents of what is going on at that particular time. And again, it's Mr. Irwin and Mr. Fincher. Those were done for illustration purposes only, but I hope it gets the point across of using a still photo to impose penalty. At that point in time, once we confirm that it's our son, we're then handed a consent form. If we sign that consent form, our son is now off of extracurricular activities for 40% of the season. In addition to that, we're required to see a social worker as we enter into the penalty. Parents and student were evaluated by y'all's social worker. And then as we exit the penalty, we're also required, if we sign the consent form, to again be evaluated by your social worker. I struggle as a parent. That kind of infringes on my rights. I have therapists already. I don't want to have to be made to use y'all's therapist in a particular case like that. At that point in time, we didn't sign the penalty, but I want you to understand that my son is off of any extracurricular activities based off of 2 still photos that do not prove any type of consumption. In addition to that, if it's comparable to a drug test, it requires a test to make sure that you're 100% using at that particular time. A still picture lacks time period of when the picture was taken. It lacks that there was any alcohol in the can. It lacks when the picture was taken. It could have been taken 4 years ago and he's still getting penalized for something that he currently isn't doing. There's too many variables when you use a photo, a still picture photo as evidence. In addition to that, the school could offer me no precise evaluation of how they validate the picture. Was it photoshopped? I have an example there. What was the time frame on the photo? Is there really beer in that can? I find there to be too many variables. In addition to that, another big issue is these pictures are not found by the ISD. They are sent to the school board. And let me explain to you one of the biggest impacts that a parent has today is called cyberbullying. To give you an example, if somebody were to post that I am sexually active maybe in my gender and that I do other things, even though I don't participate in social media, that impact can have a big, huge impact on me. These pictures that are being sent to the school district are only sent not with good intentions, but to cause additional harm to students that participate in your extracurricular activities. It puts a target on his back.
That's your 5 minutes, Mr. Prince.
In conclusion, I ask you to revisit the program, and I recommend that you delete the social media. The only impacts that this is going to have is students are going to transfer, quit, and you're causing detriment to students that are getting penalized for these pictures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Kincher, I'll visit with you because we have gotten some feedback from our attorney, and I'd love to bring you up to speed on that in the next couple of days, if that's okay.
Is it just a meeting with me, or can we have a, we have a lot of support, a lot of motion
I'll be
in
more than happy to talk
reference to this?
I'll be more than happy to talk to a group.
Okay.
So that's not a problem at all. I'll reach out to you, schedule a time, and then we'll go from there. I think it's only fair. You bring up some valid points. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. Did you guys have a chance to go through that? Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay. Okay.
I was not here for a couple of meetings in August due to some family stuff, but I did listen to the meetings on speaking of social media, on YouTube. The August 30th meeting I listened to, and I just wanted to say in front of everybody that I am supportive of the tax rate, I'm sorry that I missed the meeting, but I did want to bring that out. And I also wanted to express my support and thankfulness for those who worked on the budget, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Penrod, other administrators who worked on it. They squeezed a lot of pennies to make this happen, and I know there was a lot of discussion about the city taxes and the county taxes having gone up, and I just think that what we're doing is the best that we can do. There's always room for improvement. We can do better, but the way the budget was studied and countless hours put in on it, I believe it was great. I wish I could have been here and voted on it, but I was unable to. I just wanted you to know that I'm thankful for y'all and your hard work. I appreciate it. What you answered as far as questions concerning the budget, I thought your answers were clear. I thought that it was just a good job by all of you, especially Mr. Frazier. Thank you.
Okay, on that, so we probably need to pull out item D.
We don't have to anymore, remember?
So if you
Yeah,
missed,
what do we,
I missed the choice.
she can still vote on
You're
it?
voting as a board. She can abstain if she chooses, but it's
She can
okay
still
to vote
vote,
for
yeah.
it. Just,
Okay,
she's been able to read everything.
okay. Thank you, Marcy. Okay, any other questions or comments? We have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. Information items. Annual attorney report on collection of delinquent taxes.
Okay, I'm going to introduce Robert Myers. He's from our attorney from Waco. He's been doing this for many, many years for our school district. Does a great job. His responsibility is to collect the delinquent taxes once they're turned over to him in July of each year. Normally, 97% of the taxes are collected prior to the time he gets them, and about 3% are delinquent, and he does the rest. And, I hate to bring up taxes again, but this is Texas. We depend on taxes, and we appreciate our tax base for the support that they give our school district. And Mr. Myers does a fantastic job of collecting. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier said, I'm Robert Myers. I'm an attorney with, it's a mouthful, McCrae, just McCrae Law Firm. Let's just leave it at that. And I know we have some new members tonight, and I look forward to any questions or thoughts that you and anybody else on the board may have concerning my report. I know you've got lots of things to talk about, and I won't take up any more time, but I wanted to briefly just go through my report, get some highlights of some of the activities and some of the results of our activities for the school board. And again, if you have any questions as I go through this, please feel free to ask me. Now I'm going to start with my report, if I may, on page 2 of my report, which has a chart that shows your collections and compared to your levy for the last 4 years. This chart shows, the blue bar shows the actual levy of the taxes for the district for the last 4 years. The yellow bar shows the collections of property taxes, delinquent and current taxes, and penalties and interest during the school's fiscal year for that period of time, from October 1 through 8/31 of the next year, the school's fiscal year. And as you can see, each year the school district actually collects more property tax revenue than the actual levy itself. For example, last year in 2017, you levied $8,778,000. You collected $8,895,000, or 101.33% of the actual levy for that year. And for the prior year, 2016, you levied $8.5 million. You collected over $8.6 million, or 101.41%. And for each of the other 2 years, likewise, you collect over 100%. That's if you add into your collections, the current collections for that year, any delinquent collections for prior years that are collected during that time period, and the penalties and interest that are assessed when taxes go delinquent. So you put all that money together, all those tax collections together, current taxes, delinquent taxes, penalties and interest, you actually end up collecting more than the levy itself, which I think is a healthy sign that the district is able to meet its budgetary needs, to have plenty of money in, well, as much money as you can have, to meet the burdens of making sure everything gets paid for and teachers get paid, kids get the education that they're supposed to be here for. The chart on page 3, this chart is the same 4 years, but it actually shows for each of those tax years what amount of taxes have actually been collected for each of those 4 tax years. For example, in 2017, you levied at $8,778,000. In just 2017 taxes, you collected $8,621,000, or 98.21% of that year's taxes. For 2016 to date, or through last month, you've collected for the 2016 taxes 99.53%. That's from October 1, 2016 to date. You've collected 99.53%. And for 2015, you collected 99.78%, and 14, 99.8%. So really, very little taxes go uncollected by the district. You literally collect well over 99% of your taxes. And I think it's a healthy sign for the district from the standpoint of what drives property tax collections, current collections, delinquent collections, is the ability of people to pay. And if people have money, they have jobs, they want to keep hold of their properties, they're conscientious about that. And to me, that's what it's reflecting here. The times are good for the district and the people in your district from the standpoint of having the resources and finances and the capability to pay their taxes. So that's a healthy sign. Sometimes when the economy dips, we'll see a little dip in these numbers. But the last 3 years, they've been dipping on the upside. And I think that's a very positive sign for the district. Let me flip over to pages 4 and 5. And these charts, these are 3 pie charts. They reflect the taxes that you turn over to us. As Mr. Frazier was saying, each July you turn over the taxes from the prior year that are still outstanding. So the pie chart on page 4, these are the taxes from 2017 that were levied last October 17. They became delinquent in February this year at 18. And any of those that were outstanding as of July 1 of this year were turned over, referred to our firm for collection. That's how that works. And in July 1 of this past year, 2018, there was $269,000 in base tax left over from your 2017 taxes. They were referred to us for collection. And in 2 months, 60 days, we collected 41, close to 42% of those taxes, or $112,394. Now that's just base tax, so we can keep things compared apples to apples in these charts. In addition, you would have collected penalties and interest on those. So as you can see, in just 60 days, we collected close to 42% of the taxes that were outstanding and turned over to us. The chart and the balance of those taxes that you turned over to us, we've initiated collection activities on, notified people. I'll talk about that a little bit later, and if need be, filed suits to recover those taxes from the district. And we're continuing our collection activity on the balance of those. As you can see, the different wedges in that pie chart. The pie chart on the top of page 5, these are the 2016 taxes that you turned over to us in July 2017, or 14 months ago. At that time, there was $262,000 turned over to us in July of 2017. We've collected 84, close to 85% of those taxes in 14 months. Just a little bit more time and we can get the bulk of those collected. And a few of the outstanding taxes we're continuing our collection activity on, or have actually engaged litigation if need be. And finally, at the bottom of page 5, these are the 2015 taxes you turned over to us 26 months ago. We've collected 92, close to 93% of those taxes. Started out with $226,000, or over $209,000 have been collected. So as you can see, the taxes that you do refer to us through our collection procedures and practices, you get those taxes quickly collected for the district so that you've got the resources to keep things going and get the kids educated. And what activities we actually engage in, starting on page 8 in my report. The first thing is to reach out to your citizens, your taxpayers who owe delinquent taxes, by sending notices to each of those persons. We send those notices staggered throughout the year, so we make sure that each of those persons know that we represent the district. We're the attorneys that you engage to do that their taxes due, and we ask them to make voluntary payment of the taxes immediately to the tax office. And we send out succeeding series of letters. They get a little bit more insistent in making a request that they get those taxes paid if they haven't gotten them paid since the last notice was sent out. And this is a way that you really open up dialogue with your taxpayers. Great bulk of the delinquent taxes that we collect for you is through opening up this dialogue, sending out notices. They can contact us. We have a staff member who actually lives in Gatesville and is at the tax office on a regular basis to talk to your taxpayers, find out what's causing them not to pay their taxes. people usually don't pay their taxes because they're ornery. There's usually something more than that involved in it. Maybe there's some sickness in the family, maybe there's a financial circumstance in the family, some illness or something. So we ask them to contact us, find out what might be causing the problem within the family or in their business, and see if we can't structure, if they can't get immediate payment into us, can we structure something that they can live within their budget and get these taxes retired. Because we realize that these taxpayers are citizens of your communities, many times parents of your kids. And although we realize our obligation is to collect your taxes as quickly as possible, we realize that we need to do so in a way that is proper and respectful to those persons, and work with them to see their taxes are paid. And as you can see, I think we're very successful in getting that done, but doing so in a way that I think you would be wanting us to do, to make sure that we're treating these people with the respect and courtesy that they're entitled to. And so, first off, is opening out that dialogue. Top of page 9, when people don't get that first round or the second round or the third round, we do file lawsuits. We filed 45 lawsuits in the last year on 66 different properties for over $87,000 in taxes due to the district. And many of these lawsuits are filed against, sometimes in every community, there's properties that are, we call vacant and abandoned properties that people sort of given up on, in other circumstances. But even when we have a lawsuit involved, we're still open to working with your taxpayers and making sure that they can get their taxes paid if they're willing to do so, even over a structured payout term. And we do so in that instance as well. And we have recovered 25 judgments on 26 properties for over $54,000. And even once we have a judgment against them, we can usually get that resolved through payment of the taxes. And finally, on top of page 10, if people don't pay their taxes, ultimately their property can go to a sale. In the last 12 months, we've conducted 3 sales. The sales are always held on the first Tuesday of the month. That's how state law provides. We've held 3 sales where 13 properties were posted. 11 of them got resolved, and 2 of them ended up going through the actual sale process. And those are properties, for the most part, that people sort of given up on. And so that, even at that stage, they really get their taxes paid if they're really intending to do so. And that's what our real thrust is all about, is doing. We also represent you in bankruptcy. If any of your taxpayers filed bankruptcy, we've had a couple of them in the last year, and that's we file that in federal court and take care of that. Now, maybe the best news of all this is our fee for your services, because all our services, our legal services, notification, or the title work we do, and the other work we do, doesn't cost the district any money. Because when you refer your taxes to us in July, you also impose an additional penalty that offsets our fee. So those taxes that are referred to us in July of each year, there's delinquent taxes, penalties, and interest to the district, there's an additional penalty imposed, which we collect along with the penalties and taxes to the district. So our fee is passed on directly to the delinquent taxpayer. So there's no out-of-pocket expenses for the district, there's no upfront costs, it's passed on 100% to them. So we're not a line item in your budget or anything like that. You have your lawyer work for you for free, what a bargain that is. But that's how it works under state law. In tax collections, when you obtain counsel to help you in delinquent property taxes. That's what most taxing jurisdictions do. So in a nutshell, I went through that pretty quickly. I know you've got a lot of items on there. Again, I'm Robert Myers. Our main office of our firm is in Round Rock. My office is in Waco. We have a staff member that lives in Gatesville and is in the Coriel County Tax Office, where your taxes are collected on a regular basis. We review the roll, we work with the tax assessor collector, and we talk to your taxpayers, and usually we're able to get that matter resolved without much further. And as you can see, it's been a good result for the last few years for the district. Your collection percentages have increased. I've been doing it for a long time for the district, and I was looking back over 10, 15 years of collection numbers, and your numbers have increased each year in the collection percentages that the district is experiencing. I think that's a very positive sign for the district and for the community and for everybody involved. Look forward to be glad to answer any questions you may have. We've got a lot else. This is a great report in case you wake up in the middle of the night and you need some.
I think you and Daryl might be the only ones that agree to that.
That's probably true.
I just want to say you've worked at the district. You've worked at the district for a long period of time.
Yes, sir.
And I'm always amazed at your continued improvement on coming up with the delinquent taxes. So From a district perspective, we really appreciate what you do with us.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to represent the district. Glad to help you in any way we possibly can in now and in the future.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Summer feeding program, Carol. Man of the hour, again.
All right. You know, one of the, I guess, the most common icebreaker questions when the teachers come back from summer break is, what'd you do with your summer? I hear that all the time. Well, I'll tell you, we have a group here at Gatesville ISD, and that's the cafeteria staff. And we say, what did you do with your summer? Look at page 60 on your board report. These guys worked for 57 days during the summer, feeding kiddos in our community for free, all of them for free. They all qualified. They exceeded the number of meals from the previous high. There's over 17,600 meals that they served this past summer, and that's an increase of 11%. And for the second year in a row, our profit was about 4,000. Last year was a little bit higher, but we didn't quite get as many commodities this year as we had last, so that probably accounts for the difference. But I tell you, these guys did a super job. And I've asked Gail, and there are two special ladies that really made this all possible. And Gail can come up and introduce those two ladies. We need to honor these ladies, because they really worked hard.
Thank you. I had two managers that worked all summer long. Mrs. Cooper, if you'll stand up, please. She's the manager at elementary, and Mrs. Cooper ran the elementary building. She was in charge of feeding anyone that came to the building. She also had to do production records, which are state audited, and she was picked again to be audited this summer. We did a perfect score, as we always do in Mrs. Cooper. But she was in charge of grocery lists, inventory, everything in the building. And then Tammy Brown is our primary cafeteria manager, and she was in charge of everything outside the building, and there was a lot outside the building. She had sack lunches. She was running in and out of the building all day long, going to the park, going to the pool. We picked up the Trinity Church. They had a summer school for their little ones. We picked them up, and she was delivering meals out there. Every camp, she chased down kids who participated in camp, tried to give them a sack lunch or a breakfast. And so there was a lot of need. She would see kids walking down the street and roll down the window and say, hey, we need a sack lunch. And they did. So we fed a lot of kids that would have gone hungry without this program. So they are the backbone of that.
We're very proud of these, and I know you're very happy too with the results. It's a great service to our community.
Hey, Darryl, real quick, what was the total number of meals provided?
The total number of meals was 17,607.
And how many days was that? 57?
57 days.
So 308 meals a day, and I can honestly say, you know, I've talked to Tammy and Ms. Betty both, and they're angels. They filled a gap for lots of our students in the summertime that would not have eaten otherwise. So you would see them at every single part of the district, chasing kids down, my kids included. You know, they never miss an opportunity to pass out a meal for a student, and that's what it's about. So both of y'all sincerely, you're heaven sent in summertime for a lot of these families. So thank you all very, very much.
You know, the biblical verse, wherever two or more are gathered, we took that very seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Say something. Yeah, go ahead. Has anyone seen the billboards that say a hungry child can't learn? Or I saw two of those. The only place I saw them was between Dumas and Abilene. Two billboards, big ones that said a hungry child can't learn.
Well, there's truth to that.
Yeah. Now I haven't seen any going east to west on interstates, but that was I don't remember the highway number. It was long. But it was from Dumas down to Abilene that I saw those two signs. And when you're on the school board, things like that catch your
Catch your
mind.
eye. No, they do an amazing job, not only during the summertime, but during the school year as well. And, you know, with probably now 57% roughly of our kids socioeconomically disadvantaged, that's the only way some of them get a hot meal. And so they do a fantastic job, and it does not go overlooked.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Review of faculty and staff dress code.
Yep, so this was kind of, it came out of conversation, just through some various board members on kind of what are their staff dress code. So I researched various staff dress codes that you could have access to. China Springs, Killeen, Midway, La Vega, and those were the primary ones. As you can see, those dress codes are pretty intense, and they're pretty strict. So when you're looking at our dress code currently with our faculty and staff, that's everybody, that's just not teachers, that's everybody included. We have some work to do on ours, and we have to start somewhere though, right? You can't just all of a sudden implement something that looks like La Vega or a China Spring or a Killeen, to where it's very intense and very rigid. So we have looked at a graduated, this is what I would, it's really not an action item, it's information only because it's procedural. But phase in for the rest of this year, you know, shorts that were at the knees like that, more of a professional looking short, I'm okay with that. Shorts that are mid-thigh or higher, I'm not really okay with. And so I think if we clarify that with teachers, they're gonna be okay with that. The other thing was tattoos and sleeves, primarily the sleeves we're talking about. And you can buy an inexpensive dry fit shirt that will cover that up, and that way you will not be able to see the sleeves. So, you know, that would be my, you know, with kind of guidance from you guys, not really a voting action, but just a discussion item, that would be my, I guess, suggestion for the remainder of this year. Then going into next year, we look at it during the early spring. That way we can have something on paper before teachers buy their outfits and stuff. So, discussion?
I had several phone calls on it, teachers quite concerned with things, some of them because they'd already bought clothes.
Right, yep, exactly.
Would it be a bad idea whenever we start discussing this to have a representative?
Oh, absolutely.
Teacher
We
from
do it
each
by
campus?
committee. Like everything else we do by committee. It wouldn't just be central office making these regulations. It would be by committee like we've done every other major initiative. Starts off with a teacher-based committee with representation from every campus, and then it would be presented to you guys for approval. But you do see the other districts, and these are the only districts I can actually just find off the website. Some of the smaller districts, they don't have them even posted on their website because they're procedural and they're probably under their faculty handbook versus anything else. But I think as we look at it, we do have a pretty lax dress code. But you know, this is, when I first got here, you know, this is something that I wanted to address. But as it got out and word started talking, it was one of those things that had major pushback. So I knew at that point was not the time to push the initiative of dress code when we're trying to really look at what's focusing on instruction and learning, getting that piece moving in the right direction. But you know, for teachers to wear short shorts is not appropriate. So I think that's something that can be addressed. But knee-length shorts, professional looking shorts, there's an official name for this, but I forgot what the official name of those shorts are. Is something that I think is palatable and respectful, and they could wear that. That would not be an issue. So I think it's a happy medium as we get started.
I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Me too.
I don't know if I don't speak for everybody, but just
And I was like David, the only feedback I got was, hey, we've already bought clothes
absolutely
this year.
and we want to be sensitive to that. We don't want to.
It's created a pretty good buzz. I don't know who else has got questions on it, but I've had a few phone calls.
Yeah, well, it has, and it created a buzz my first year here because I thought we were going to have guys in ties and ladies in dresses every single day. And that's not the intent that I want to move towards. But if you look at the other school districts and how rigid they are on, even when you can wear blue jeans, you know, it's a pretty rigid system. So outside Gatesville, they do take this very serious, and something that we need to move towards cleaning up. I don't know if we ever go to the severity of some of the other districts around us, but we have to make it our own. You know, we're not just going to plop another district down and say this is how we're going to dress. We have to make it our own. So we'll have definitely have a committee.
Good. think that'll ease their minds a
Yeah,
lot.
and I'll send all this out tomorrow. That way they can understand it.
So the full length sleeve tattoos is the only thing we're gonna address?
Yeah, because it's something that it needs to be covered up.
In the short shorts.
In the short
They won't be allowed.
shorts, yeah, the short
Well,
shorts.
I was talking about in the tattoos.
Yeah, in the
Oh.
tattoos, right now, and then we'll get deeper into a conversation as we get into that springtime. Questions? Okay.
Faculty and staff report and dismissal times.
All right, so this is another request we had. These are our official reports and end times. You know, you can see, we run into a little bit of a dilemma because our local child care centers, they only open at 7:30. So, you know, from a teacher's perspective, you can't drop off your child any earlier than 7:30. So we have to be cognizant of that. And if you look at it, teachers are getting there roughly 10 to 15 minutes before the actual bell starts. And we feel that's about as tight as we can go without having teachers rushing in at the exact same time, kids are rushing in. And on admin, it's pretty much 25 to 30 minutes, or 35 minutes before the bell starts. Again, if you drive by any given campus, I promise you, there are teachers there at 6, and there are teachers there at 8 o'clock at night, and there are admin there at 6:30, and admin there at 10 o'clock at night. So these are the bare minimum, with start time and end time as they sit. From a district office, we officially are open from 8 to 5. I don't know too many central office personnel that are only here from 8 to 5. So, questions, discussion on that?
Have we looked at any other local districts, how they do it?
I
Report time?
have not, but typically it's 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after is what a typical district has been. Anywhere I've ever been, it's been 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. So we're actually not as tight on that. And where we come into, we have all duty stations. So every campus administrator has a duty station, and then typically teachers rotate duty stations. So if you look at primary, if we only had primary, where's Bridget? Bridget, if you're the only one doing duty, it'd be difficult, right? It'd be impossible. It'd be impossible. So we have to kind of rotate those other duty stations around. And we work with teachers, if they have to visit, drop up at 7:30, you know, they can have an afternoon duty. So, you know, and a lot of campuses have actually gone to, okay, here's the duty places, y'all pick where you want to go, and you have to pick a number of 4 or 5 different times a year that you have to be there in 3-week increments. So we feel this is about as tight as we can get it, and still being flexible on the teachers. That doesn't mean that I've been at Donut Hole at 7:55 and I haven't seen a teacher at 7:55 getting their donuts. You know, that happens. And if it's a onesie twosie, you know, that's not a big deal. I don't want to get in a situation where we're micromanaging teachers and hiding out in parking lots, and making sure that teachers are getting there and admin are getting there on time. If it becomes a habitual habit, then yes, we will take that into account and hold that person accountable for getting there on time. But there's a loose tie whenever you're talking to teachers on report time and admin on report time. As long as they're hitting these numbers, then I'm okay with that, because typically teachers have they have kids, you know, and they have to get kids sometimes 3 different buildings before they can even make their own self to their own campus. So, you know, this is about as tight as we can get it. I don't think we can give them any less time. If you're talking 10 to 15 minutes before school starts, and teachers are just getting there, then we have to really focus on that. But you know, we've had the same one now for 2 years. This is going on the 3rd year that we've had this, and it really has been pretty palatable for teachers to get to and not really have an issue with. But again, more discussion if needed. Yeah.
I'm hearing quite a few teachers, they're not really complaining, but the fact of having to stay so late, they're spending a lot of Saturdays and Sundays. I know some of them are just dedicated.
Yep.
But what is the workload that causes that? Is it paperwork? What?
I think it's all the above. You know, I do. I think we live in a complex educational system where we have more demands placed on us than we've ever had before. And some of that is special education paperwork, some of that is regular paperwork, some of that is teachers typically get into the profession because they're passionate about their job. And you drive by on a Saturday and Sunday in any one of our campuses, you'll see administrators and teachers there. And you go to central office and you'll see 3 or 4 of us here every single weekend. Teaching's not a hobby. You know, it's not something that people get into and only do it halfway. You know, they're passionate. So typically they try to do a lot, and they try to do a lot of planning, and the planning sometimes is what takes the longest. And if they're planning as a group, and a teacher can only be up there on Wednesday because she has kid duties the other 4 days a week, then that teacher may work longer on that day. But there's nothing required outside their time, but a lot of times they're just doing it because they want to be excellent teachers.
Well, how far behind would one get if they went home at 5 o'clock every day? That's what I'm wondering.
Can I address that?
Yeah.
3:55.
Yeah, me too.
Those teachers.
Well, whatever.
Go ahead, you go first.
You go first, go ahead.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Don't address me, address the camera.
Sometimes it's better and quieter to go on the weekends. I've been there, and I would, you know, I'd stay late if I could, but sometimes it's just nice to get up there by yourself and be able to be in your room for 3 or 4 hours and do stuff and get ahead. Sometimes there were days that I got things done a lot better than other days, just because things were kind of, you know, any jobs like that. But I think if you see people here on the weekends, I don't know if it's, they could be behind and they want to catch up, or they might want to get ahead, or just have some time to be quiet in the room and do stuff. Go ahead.
All of the above. You touched on everything I was going to say, and in my experience, it's not a matter of behind so much. It goes back to what both of them said, what Eric said and what Mary Ann said about caring and wanting to be excellent about what you do, and there's time away. You can't get it done during the school day, and not because of time constraints, it's because everything that's hitting you walking through the door. You just need time to clear your mind and process.
I know that feeling, and part of that's being self-employed, that you can't get anything done during the day because people calling or
Right.
coming by.
You know, David, I'll drop my kids off at cross country at 5:45, and I may come in here and work for an hour and a half before I go home and change real quick and then come back up.
And I'm asking these questions because it's what's asked of me.
Sure.
So these are good answers, and I hope, you know, teachers are listening on the media.
A lot of the teachers I talk to work late because the work's just piled on. It's piled on and piled on, and that was going to be a question of mine. I know a year or two ago, some of them told me that you said, we won't put anything else on your
Right.
plate without taking something off.
Right.
Would there be any way that we could get a report as to what's been put on and what's been taken off? Because everybody that I've talked to said very little has been taken off and a bunch has been piled on.
So
I mean, I'm
yeah,
just.
I said that 4 years ago, in my first year here, and you know, when teachers were at that point working in isolation, so there wasn't a whole lot of collaboration going on. So over the last 3 years, we've really shifted to a collaborative team model. So you'll have your first grade team, second grade team, your 8th grade math team, you know, working together. And whenever you ask a group of 4 or 5 people to get together and actually collaborate to make things more efficient, it takes time. It takes time. So the theory behind working collaboratively in any setting, it doesn't matter if it's educationally based or business based or even spousal based, it takes time to build those roles and responsibilities to where you are making things more efficient. But everything that we do is worked back through the collaborative teams. So you'll see some collaborative teams now that are so much more efficient, and it is such less workload because now they're working collaboratively and distributing the capacity amongst the group versus sitting and trying to do everything by themselves in isolation. So whenever I said that 4 years ago, I knew that it would take 3 to 4 years to actually get to a point where they were starting to see the benefit. But if you ask teams now, they are understanding what a true collaborative team looks like and what that shared responsibility and collective efficacy looks like. You'll see in the action plans tonight that a lot of them have been to real quality training now in collaborative teams. So they are working better collaboratively than they ever have. And so if you work individually, then you're right, it's gonna pile up and pile up. But if you work collaboratively and you're able to share responsibility and you trust your teammates, then you're able to actually work more efficiently. So that's the whole premise behind what we try to do here in Gatesville, is work collaboratively to ensure that your plate is not as full as it was the day before, because you're shared responsibility across the board.
So is it possible to come up with a list of duties that have been added to the teachers and duties that have been taken away from them? In the past 2 or 3, 4 years?
Yeah, we can do that. In fact, we did that just the other day. You know, what goes well, what's going well, and what's not going well, and what are we asking teachers to do right now. You also have to think some of these things are federally based, some of them are state based. So sometimes we don't have a say if the federal government says you have to do this, this, and this. We have to do it. Same thing with state stuff. If the state says because you did this, you have to do now these reports, we have to do those reports. But even those, I'll give you an example. You know, the elementary had one subdomain, even though they met standard, they had one area that they needed to improve upon. The amount of paperwork with that alone is, ask John.
That's the last 3 weeks of my life, yes.
So the amount of paperwork with that alone, it has been immense. And John, close your ears for a second.
It's all good.
Because we've received input from the teachers, but then I've placed the responsibility on Barrett and the 2 administrators to actually go complete that. Because if not, a lot of people would just give that to the teachers and say, go do it. But I said, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna get input from them, and then you as the administration is actually gonna go back and write that report. So now you can open yours, John.
It's all good. And also on
Yes, to answer your question, we will do that for you.
Okay, great.
On and off plate things, and since he brought me up, I work a lot in Killeen and Waco with interns. What we ask teachers to do by comparison to what they ask teachers to do in those districts, outside of the normal scope of their duties, is infinitesimal. The biggest complaint I hear, I can handle the classroom, I'm great with the curriculum, it's all the outside stuff and the meetings that I have to go to outside that are killing my time. It's not the teaching side or the prep side. So just compared to other, you had mentioned other districts, and compared to other districts, I think we're okay. Is it a lot on teachers? Absolutely, it's always a lot on teachers.
Yeah. It's also a lot on administrators, central office. I mean, it's not a trickle down to where it gets just filtered from the superintendent and he doesn't do anything and the teacher does it all. No, we try to stop it at the central office level, to be very honest with you, on those type of reporting things that we have to do. Sometimes it doesn't even hit the principal's desk, because we just want to be able to take care of it and actually put that burden back on them. Philosophically, I don't believe in adding and adding and adding. And I think there's evidence of that when you think about just the action plans. You know, the way we structure action plans and the way we focus our campus improvement plans is very concisely focused on keeping things simple and focusing on 1 or 2 things versus 36 things. And so philosophically, I don't believe in overburdening teachers. We have to get to a point where we become more efficient and we work smarter. And then the driving question that I always have is, who's the smartest person in the room? It's the room. It's not one individual. It's the collective purpose of the room. So whenever you're looking at that, that's where collaboration is essential. Because if you're collaborating around good quality best practices and everybody's on the same page, then your workload by definition and by theory and action is lessened. Good talking points though. I mean, good points.
I know in years past that, you know, the administration was here, if I'm not mistaken, at 7 a.m. every day. They opened the door. I don't know when we got away from that, but.
Neither do I. I mean, this is what kind of we were doing prior to. So, but there, again, it's not uncommon to see administration there at 6:30. I can go back and look and talk and try to find some evidence of that. And if that's something we want to look at, again, it's procedural, it's not a board action.
What about, I mean, we compare ourselves to other districts and everything else. Can you get us a comparison with the?
I can, but what we're gonna find is those both teachers and administrators are gonna be working longer than we are. But I'll do that. But I promise you, we have the closest, tightest report and end times.
Well, yeah, they're working longer hours because they come to school earlier. They come to work earlier.
What's that?
I said they're working longer hours than we are because they come to work earlier.
Who?
The administrators and the teachers.
You're talking about for the other districts?
Right, well, and other districts are going to be longer. They're gonna be longer days. Required longer days, I promise you that.
Right.
So, yeah, I can do that.
Do you want the teachers to
I
come
know,
earlier?
that's what I was wondering, do you want
Do
them
you
to
want
be
the
longer?
teachers to come earlier?
I don't know that the teacher, I feel like administration needs to be earlier. And I think you'll find on your report that there's a lot of places where the administration is required to be at work at 7 o'clock. I've checked 2 or 3 districts and 7 o'clock is their time and always has been. I don't know, but I'll.
So you're just talking about administrators?
Talk a little more about that later on when we get into another subject.
So, are we still on days for the contracts?
Yes, we didn't go to minutes.
We didn't go to minutes, because if you go to minutes, then that changes the whole thing. You gotta start paying them for those minutes.
Yeah.
This is just on students, correct?
Yeah.
Students
State's
have-
Infinite Wisdom went to minutes on students and days on teachers. So, okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Comments? Okay. Review district campus action plans.
All right, so we kind of had a little precursor to that. Wrong way. So, 4 years ago, we went from a comprehensive, multi-page, multi-goal campus improvement plan and shrunk it down to a 1 or 2 page, 1 or 2 item campus action plan. And the thought is, it's virtually impossible, whatever research you read, that you can accomplish 15, 20, 30 goals. You just can't do it. So we really went into what is your campus working on, what are those 1 or 2 things, bang for buck, that your campus can really dive into and make significant progress from a student achievement standpoint, and still be, again, go back to decrease workload of a teacher. Because when you get a stack this thick and your campus improvement plan is 130 pages long, and a teacher's supposed to implement all 130 pages, there's absolutely zero way that can be done effectively. It can't happen. So the first 3 years, we have really gone to a campus one. We felt we are ready now, but the campus one still hit or did not hit the specific needs of specific grade levels. It was more overarching. So this year, through conversations with teachers, we've actually moved that campus action plan down to the campus, to the grade level or subject. So now my Algebra 1 team, as opposed to being, here's my specific goal for high school, now the Algebra 1 team has 1 or 2 goals that the Algebra 1 team is working on. So we've gone from that holistic, now we're down to the actual subject, which is the logical next step for us academically to become more concise. And so that was our first step this year to do that, and I think the faculty and staff, they actually embraced it, because now they had true ownership of it. And if you're talking to a 2nd grade team, it's not a goal that may be impacting them at a 3rd grade level, even a 1st grade level. Specifically, okay, what are the 1 or 2 things you're gonna do in 2nd grade that is gonna make 2nd grade, based off the information you have, better in terms of student outcomes. So we've tightened it down to where now it's subject-based, campus-based, grade level-based. And then the campuses will have an overarching, here's our campus goal for the year. So you have it this month, they'll get approved next month. You have access to it, correct?
Yes, it's in their
Yeah.
board book and under school board only.
Yes, you'll see it broken down by campuses. The easiest one is primary, because really she has 2 of them, 1 grade level, and she'll have two goals. You get to high school, and he has a lot more, just naturally because he has more subjects, and those subjects are very specific goals for that specific subject, which I think is the way to go. It's more concise, it's more purposeful, and the teachers in that subject have direct access and say in how they want to improve their subject. So
the difference is, for like the high school, you're gonna have a thick book, but each teacher doesn't have to do the whole
no,
book.
they're pulling out their one page.
That's right.
You know, they're pulling out their one page, which is pretty awesome. That we've graduated to a point where they're able to do that. We wanted to clear it all first, make it simple. Now we're making it refined, and we're going deeper into our understanding.
By comparison to what we have here tonight, when I took over the high school campus, it was a 72-page document that someone had lumped TPRI into the back side of, which is a primary assessment.
I remember that.
I know you do.
It was totally ask.
It was totally meaningless.
Yeah, it was meaningless. Who had ownership of it?
Box. It checked the
Who had
box.
ownership of that, John?
And you put it on the shelf and no one ever looked at it or implemented a thing.
Three-ring binder.
And the neat thing about this is we've actually aligned, so there's a portion in the teacher evaluation system in T-test that is goal specific, right? So why should a teacher have a goal sitting out here, but then have a goal as a team sitting over here? So what we've done is align those now. Now my T-test teacher goal is the exact same thing as my grade level goal. So you talked about being more efficient, Rob, that is efficiency. Because before, I'd have to have a set of goals over here, a set of goals over here. And at the end of the day, you have so many goals that you can't do them. So we're trying to align those and make them so specific to the individual that they know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to assess it, how they're going to adjust, and how we're going to differentiate whenever they don't get it, right? So with that said, I've given each principal 35 minutes to present tonight. I think in my email to them today, it was 2 minutes max. So Bridget, want to get started? No, I'm not setting a timer.
Please don't set a timer.
Did you make them go below the 2 minutes?
I've got 2 minutes in me. It's good. Okay. Well, so in the past, what we have really kind of focused on is the academic side to primary school, and we have not deviated from that. That is one of our big overarching things. But also, we really need to focus on our PPCD and our pre-K kiddos, because in addition, we have 5-year-olds who are coming to school for the first time. So they've never had any kind of they've never seen anything, they've never seen these routines and stuff, and so we really wanted to focus on their social and emotional development. So that is the second part to ours. Ultimately, our primary goal is to build strong academic and social emotional foundations so that our kids are successful at the different levels that they go to. And really and truly, if you think about child development, there are so many areas of child development that you need to be able to be successful in all of those in order to really focus on the learning. Because again, you walk in and a child's never had routine, or they've never had, they don't know how to express themselves. So there's so many aspects. We talk about language, communication. Some of our kids can't even come in to say a complete sentence of 3 words. So again, we deal with a lot, a spectrum of quite a bit of differences. Approaches to learning, thinking about their cognitive development. We can't really get to that cognitive part until we really focus on that social and emotional aspect. So again, our ultimate goal, socially and emotionally, our kids are really trained by the teachers. They're modeled, they're shown the good behavior, they're shown, okay, what is your choice? Make a good choice. And really try and pinpoint and focus on that before we really are able to go, okay, now we're ready to learn. But again, that's really our overarching areas. We want to focus on the academics. Of course, we're going to have ELAR and math goals again, but we want to make sure that they are reaching those points that they have in the past. But again, we also need to focus on where they have been so that we can see where they're going to end up.
And kudos to Bridget, because I think you have 3 goals, don't you?
I have 2.
You have 2. So you have your academic ones, which is your ELAR and your math. Which hasn't really changed. The depth's gotten better, but it really hasn't changed in 2 years. But then one thing we noticed at that campus was we really, I'm going to say it, we hadn't really bridged that PPCD piece. And for them to bridge that PPCD piece and make it truly a part of that campus is something that we heard in the audit. It's also something that we heard just talking with each other. is that they need to be a part of that campus's, I guess, profile to ensure that a kid's moving, progressing
Right.
forward.
And we have 3-year-olds that walk in, but it's based on special needs, whereas sometimes we could get 5-year-olds or maybe even 6-year-olds who are coming into kindergarten and do not have any experience whatsoever with other children, how to deal with their emotions, how to act behaviorally appropriate. So there are so many different levels to it that we want to make sure we're able to hone in on those things so that the academics come easier to them.
And you'll see as you open up those plans, all the aspects that you really need to see that put them together. How are you going to assess it? What's your goal? How are you going to adjust the goal? All those things, the formative piece, the summative piece, all those things that make up that goal. So, good job. Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. Pam?
I didn't want to interrupt.
That's okay, just sidebar.
Just a sidebar. In developing our action plan for 18-19, really it is just an expansion of what we previously focused on with building literacy and developing our techniques as in professional learning communities. So we've expanded it for our entire campus so that our focus is going to be on, we're putting actions in place that allow us for the ongoing monitoring of our student performance. And that with that, the data that we collect from that monitoring, that we stop on a regular basis, we investigate, we look at that, and that we let that guide our instruction and our interventions. One, we kept it simple because we have a lot to do.
Questions?
Question?
Very similar to the elementary school, professional learning communities was a big part of what we wanted to highlight this year. We've sent over the last year several teachers to professional training, intense training with Solution Tree on the professional learning community model. We have probably another 10 to 15 going this year. We're branching to make sure that we can send as many teachers as we can each year, adding to that number of teachers who receive that intense training. And so our big focus is making sure that we are holding each other accountable, developing that trust within each team to be able to look at data, look at it honestly, and let it guide us in our decisions on instruction, intervention, extension activities, and so forth. So that's come along very nicely. And then we also have a focus on writing this year. Looking at our student performance, and then also looking at where we've been asking students to make sure that they provide written responses, not just oral or multiple choice type tests. We want to make sure that our students are developing into to young writers, making sure that we're developing young authors out of our kiddos. So we have a focus on writing as well.
Good, I like that. Yeah, we acknowledge we're not writing enough. We're not. And in today's age, your writing and your reading have to be joined at the hip. You can't do one without the other. So you can't just read every day and not write. So they have to be seamless and they have to work together. And we're not doing enough writing. So that's a challenge that the curriculum team and I have placed on the campus principals is we have to incorporate more writing. If you can write it, then you're going to be more efficient as you go through life.
And then you can read it.
And you can read it.
And I
didn't want to sound the obvious.
And I think our increased focus on reading is going to facilitate that, right? I mean, speak, read, write.
The reciprocal, right?
Right.
It all spins off each other.
So one should feed right into the other.
Absolutely. And one thing from and Bridget, I don't know if you have the intervention time already built into your schedule, but I know elementary, you do too. So this year is the first year that every single one of our campuses have intervention time built into the school day. So they're not just randomly or after school or trying to make a hodgepodge schedule with 2 weeks to go before some state assessment. Every single campus, including high school, starting here in a couple of weeks, has a built-in intervention period that will be changing very frequently, bi-weekly, maybe even weekly.
Maybe even weekly.
And the goal is to not wait until November, December, January to try to start intervening on kids, but as kids need, it's twofold. As kids need interventions, you're at the specific time where you can intervene exactly on the skill that that child needs. The other piece of that is the enhancement piece. So how do you enrich those activities for those students that already have it? Those are the real drivers behind intervention. It's the first time I'm being able to say it for 4 years. It's a goal that I've had, and it really means something when you can have intervention time built into the day versus before school or after school because you can't catch all your kids. And so it'll change depending on the kid's ability and on the standards being taught. So if we're teaching these 4 or 5 standards this week, kids aren't getting it, they're going to go directly into intervention the following week as opposed to waiting until March, April, May and going back and trying to catch those kids. So pretty amazing that all the teachers, all the campuses are doing
Well,
that now.
another way that we wanted to provide teachers with time during the day to have meaningful discussions is we departmentalized at the intermediate 4th and 5th, their conference planning time. That way, math teachers have time off during the day to talk to math teachers. Reading teachers have time off during the day to talk to reading teachers. And that way they can plan accordingly and work together to come up with the best instructional plan to move forward.
Yeah, Mr. Irvin, that was also, look at things we've taken away. That was prior to this year on some of the campuses, that was done after school. So the collaborative time, your team meeting time was done after school. We've eliminated that. Non-negotiable for secondary 2 years ago was to build it during the day, and it's now filtered down to the elementaries. Yeah, you're junior high.
All right, well, kind of piggybacking off what Nick said, junior high is a time for rigorous instruction, to dig down deeper and get them ready for high school. And so, when our teams were planning their action plan for their specific departments, things kept bubbling up to the top. Rigor was one of them. But when you talk about English language learners, our ESL kiddos, writing is the last thing that comes, just as we talked about it a few minutes ago. And so it's the same with everyone. So we are focusing on writing as well. If our teachers are teaching a rigorous curriculum, then that's going to come. But our writing, we want them to be effective writers. We have to get them ready for high school. So our departments each have their own action plan, and through talking about that, writing kept bubbling up. We need our kids to write more. We need better writers. How can we have them writing? And so our classes, everybody across the disciplines are going to be writing. Our art teacher is going to have her kids writing. Our team leadership teacher is going to have her kids writing. And so we're going to develop a rubric, because I know these people, a lot of teachers aren't English teachers. A math teacher is like, I can't grade writing. So we're going to come up with a rubric for them based off the secondary rubric that we have for writing. And they'll give them a 1, 2, or 3 based just on content. If we can get kids putting sentences on paper and writing, staying on topic with a prompt or with a task that's given with whatever they're doing with it, if it's a test question or whatever, then the English teachers can hone in on those grammatical things and the mechanics. But if we're getting kids to write in every subject area, electives, core classes, then we will have better writers. Because we did, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a writing time before we started our intervention time during the day. It was called SWAT, Student Writing Achievement Time. And the whole school stopped for 10 minutes every day, and every kid wrote no matter what class they were in. And the teachers, we had a 5-point scale. It was capitalization, punctuation, complete sentences, did it meet the topic, and there was one other thing I don't remember. And teachers' feedback was, we're seeing kids getting things on paper when they would just sit there and say, I don't know what to write, this is hard, I can't write, I don't know how. And so our writing scores improved because of that, and we had kids actually writing. And so we've now done intervention during the day, and we've kind of gotten away from that writing time. So we're trying to build that back in with every subject and every teacher. And so they're our kids. They're not math's kids or writing English's kids or history's kids. They're our kids. And so we're all in this together as a team to help our kids become better writers. And then they'll be effective communicators, and they'll be ready to go to high school.
last but not least.
Okay. I was able to attend the training that Nick mentioned earlier, the Solution Tree Summer training on professional learning communities, and it was probably the best training I've been to in my educational career. Very powerful statements about becoming a professional learning community and what that means for your students. And last year I wasn't real sure what the target was at the high school because we have so many people aiming so many things with math and science and social studies and CTE, and I didn't have a clear grasp of the overall vision for the school. Coming back from that community and that training and working with the teacher leaders on our campus, we really settled on our goal is to become a true professional learning community. And the community is everybody doing it together, sharing that workload and sharing that planning and those questions about how are our students going to be successful, and really believing all students will learn at high levels. And that's going to be our focus this year, and we're going to do that through 3 basic tenets. We're going to have ongoing collaboration time built into the school day. All, like Mr. Penrod said, all social studies teachers have the same planning period. All science teachers, all math teachers, all English teachers, CTE teachers, as best we could, have the same planning period. So that collaboration time is built within the school day. And then we're going to use purposeful, frequent common assessments so that we can measure the learning that's going on, what our students are learning. And we've really got to shift that focus from teaching to learning. It's not about what did I cover, what did I tell them, it's what did they learn. And then finally, we've got to use that end-day intervention time built within the school day so that students can be successful. And that's going to be our focus this year. And kind of one of the mantras around the high school this year is when you know better, you got to do better. And we know better. We know that schools are more effective when they have ongoing collaboration, when they use common formative assessments frequently, and when they have end-day interventions. And so that's our goal, is to become a true professional learning community this year.
So let's stop and pause for a second. It makes me extremely proud that and this is not me, this is campus administration, but it makes me extremely proud over a 3-year period to hear the conversations go from arrows just shooting everywhere and all these pockets of isolation to a point now where the entire district is understanding how a common goal and the conversations and the collective intent of fighting for campuses going in the same direction will ultimately benefit kids. The conversations that you just heard were not the conversations that you heard 4 years ago. They weren't. And I think one thing that needs to be said is just because you have a common team planning together, that does not mean that we're requiring teachers to teach the exact same way. I walked into a 6th grade math class on Thursday or Friday. Walked into 3 of them because I wanted to see, are there variations in not how they're teaching them, but what are they teaching? And there was not one variation. All 3 of them were teaching the exact same thing. They're teaching it with their own professional capacity. All 3 of them were teaching it very, very well. So there's a misconception out there that you try to micromanage how teachers teach and what they teach. No, teaching is an art form. And teaching is something that you can't take the creativity away from a teacher and the professionalism of a teacher. The only thing that you have to hold the teacher accountable to is how are we teaching it, how are we assessing it, and then are we teaching it to the standards and level of rigor that the state states. And so I think over the 3 years that we've been here, music to my ears as a superintendent, to hear the vernacular all of a sudden start aligning to one common conversation. So that's neat to hear. It's neat to hear.
Any questions or comments?
Good work. Purposeful. Tons of academic language. You guys are focused on growth down to the very individual student level. I don't know how you could have done better with what you did. Well done.
Gives you goosebumps. It should give you goosebumps. It does me. Thank you, guys.
You done?
I'm done.
Just checking, I don't want to get in trouble.
School Health Advisory Council. Mr. Harper.
Well, it's a new year, so we have a new SHAC committee. At the beginning of the year, parents volunteer. They fill out a SHAC application, and they're turned in. And then I take the stack, and I go through all those that are correctly filled out, completely filled out, so that I can get back in touch with them. They're on the list. And so the 34, 36 names are on the list are all the forms that they filled out completely. The forms that are not filled out completely, a lot of times parents are in that mode of just signing papers, and then they realize, I think this is what's going on. They realize, oh, I'm not going to do it. So then they just turn in the stack of papers, so they're not complete. But the list of names that you have are the ones that we're asking to be approved for the SHAC committee, including a volunteer, Ms. Nicole Schonkweiler, to be our co-chair, along with Laura Winkler, who's our school representative co-chair. She's the nurse at the elementary.
So just for clarification, you did not eliminate anyone that completed, turned in a completed package?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So a recommendation to approve the parents presented for membership on the SHAC committee and the volunteer listed as co-chair.
Any discussion, questions about the list? Do we have a motion to accept the list? A second? Any other discussion? You good, David?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? We're good?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Safety and security resolution.
Yes, as you have that, the language is in there to empower the superintendent to direct him to create the Gatesville ISD School Defender Program, to look into it and develop the CKC local policy. And so this resolution is just pointing us in the right direction, that we do want to create the GISD Defender Program, and that will end with a policy CKC local. And so the recommendation to approve the resolution is presented, authorizing the superintendent to proceed with the creation of a School Defender Program as a recommendation.
Okay, I'm going to read the resolution and then we vote to adopt the resolution. Okay. Resolution by the Board of Trustees, Gatesville Independent School District. Whereas Gatesville ISD has determined that the safety and security of students and staff is paramount, and whereas the Board of Trustees realizes the local district personnel will be first on scene in the event of an armed intruder or other dangerous situation, and whereas the Board of Trustees has directed local district administration to utilize all means necessary to protect the students and staff of Gatesville ISD, and whereas the Texas Legislature passed the Protection of Texas Children Act in 2013, which allows the Board of Trustees to designate school defenders in order to enhance security and safety of students and staff, and whereas the Board of Trustees has determined that it would be in the best interest of Gatesville ISD to prepare for any and all safety and security situations. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gatesville ISD Board of Trustees has directed the Superintendent of Schools, pursuant to the Protection of Texas Children Act, to proceed with the creation of a school defender program for the district, and further authorize the superintendent to take whatever action necessary to establish the program, including creating written regulations and procedures for appointment of school defenders for final approval by the Board of Trustees, policy CKC legal and CKC local. That's the resolution, gives them the authority now to proceed forward with developing our policy. Any questions, comments?
Does this pertain to the people we had come talk to us?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You have to pass the resolution before we can
Got
get
it.
the process.
Just want to make sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
I'd like to also point out before you do that, I think there's two facets to this, right? So there's the mental health side, and then there's the guardian side. Mental health side is as important, if not more important, than the other side. So, I just don't, for Kate, we can talk tomorrow, but this is something that's not just about looking at the defender program, but also what can we do proactively with mental health.
We want a preventative.
It's absolutely intended on being preventative.
Rob, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just reading the regulations and procedures for appointment of school defenders for final approval. So the regulations and procedures will be approved. We're not gonna know.
Until October meeting. So what my suggestion would be, we'd have a town hall meeting the week of October 1st through 5th. At some point, we'll nail down that date. And then we will, between now and then from then till the October meeting, actually have a working session with our attorney to make sure that we have policy in place that is palatable.
We'll need to make sure we get that out well before the next meeting so that everybody has time to go through it and make sure they're comfortable with it.
Should the mental health aspect be included in this resolution?
Well, it's just pointing us and giving us direction to go. Whatever we have to do to create our Defender program, we're going to create.
So it's just
This is giving me the authority to go initiate the process, the whole plan.
It's not just about response, it's about the preventative side. And so we'll bring all of that to the table whenever it gets to the CKC local for approval.
It's authorization to get the wheels rolling.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution
So moved.
as read? Second, David? Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Raise your hand. Any opposed? Sign this.
And we will nail down the date, probably maybe even a couple dates on the town hall meeting so we catch more on people.
All right. We're going to go into executive session. So we'll wait till time when
After 5 minutes.
we're going to take a break.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
Thank you all.
5 or 10 minutes, whatever y'all are ready. Yeah, sure.
Don't ask, just grab it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What's wrong with you? Oh, my
I know yours is.
Harper? Way too long. I miss her. I know I usually pop in, buy gift when we catch up. And I bet it's been 6 months plus. I need to stop in. Good. That's wonderful. That's awesome. She was Superwoman.
Hey, Cheyenne.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing? Talk to me every once in a while.
9 o'clock.
Good to see you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Or after 10.
Well, Joe, Carrie.
I will. I talk to her about every other day or so. Yeah.
I love your nail polish.
Oh, good to see you.
Oh, no, I'm over here for that.
Yeah, put it all together. Unless you want to stay.
Mine was better than I thought.
Close everything, make sure it's off.